everyone. Just wait to see if we get a few joining us. Yeah, I can see 1 or 2 people joining. Welcome. Nice to have people joining me again. It's less than a week since I was live last week. Today is a doing day though. So in a moment, I'll just give a couple of minutes for people to join us. In a moment, I'll be just sharing some of the materials that you might like to gather. That's always reassuring when I see those numbers ticking up. At least I know I'm going live and people can see me and they're joining. See people are still joining. We'll just give it a couple of minutes. My studio is not looking too untidy, is it? It's quite neat, but you can't see the floor. So before we're live, I have a little mad scurry around and just move everything out of sight. And then when I finished, I just move it all back again. And it's not looking too bad, I don't think. Yeah, we've still got people joining. I can't see who is joining, but if you want to, you can give me a little thumbs up, give me a little hello, and then I can see if you're able to hear me. There's always a delay, of course, on Facebook. So what I can see on one screen when I'm looking at my iPad, there is a delay. If you are watching, can you just hit a little emoji for me so I can see if it's actually broadcasting and coming through? Yeah, I can't see anything happening at all, so I'm not sure what's going on there. I'll just give it a quick refresh and see. Okay, right, I can't see any comments coming through, so I'm just going to make a start anyway. So just be aware, I might not be able to see any comments. I'm not seeing any kind of emojis or comments at the moment. So I'm going to make a start anyway. And if you do leave comments, I might be able to catch up and see them afterwards. Okay, so thank you for joining me. Thank you if you're joining later, other parts of the world. It will be recorded, so it'll stay in the group. I'll share it in my creative group here on Facebook as well, so you can always go back and catch up on things. Thank you if you join me and you're cooking your tea here in the UK. I know that some of you have got me on in the background while you're cooking dinner. That's okay. That's okay. You can play along later. So I'm going to be using from the new collection. So the little blobby people, or I don't think I ever did decide what to call them. And I'm going to be using Christmas tree from this one here. So I'm mainly going to be using, I've got glasses on for this, KC016 and KC015. So those are the stamp sets that I'm going to focus on. And I've been in a little bit of a phase. I think we all do this. You go through a phase. So I've been doing paper piecing a lot. So here you can see I've got a little Christmas tree. And paper piecing is where you stamp your image first on white card and then you stamp it onto any of your backgrounds. So I've got like loads and loads of prints here. And these ones are all using the new collection stencils, the backgrounds that I've already made. So one of the great things about paper piecing is you can use up all of your tiny scraps. So something like this, but there's so much more that you can add to make it look a little bit more sophisticated. So if you just cut out a print and stick it on, it can look a little bit unfinished. So I want to just show and share with you some of those extra finishing touches I do to make things look a little bit more sophisticated, a little bit more finished. It does mean, so there's another one, her body is paper pieced on there. So this bit is taken from a print, and it does mean that you get so much more pattern and texture in those images that you cannot get if you just colour in, like with your watercolours or whatever. And then this one here is paper pieced as well. There's a nice one as well on now the mobile, and you might have seen this last week when I did my live. So on that one particularly, you can see lots of extra stamping and finishing touches on there. I'm going to put a little bit more volume on. So things that I have got ready, I've got some cut out already. Just check if I've got checking I've got my sample, and I still can't see anything coming through, but we'll keep going. And so I've got these cut out ready, and I've cut these out with about 1mm. So there is a reason for that, which we will see. So I've got a few things cut out ready. I've also got my corresponding stamps ready so that I can stamp them onto pattern backgrounds. I'm going to colour with one of two things, so regular watercolours, but also I've got some of my infusions mixed up. Now these are those little travel pots you can get for going on holiday and things, but in here I've mixed up plenty with water, and that's ready then just to go. So I can take the lid off, dip my brush in, and then I can colour with infusions. I've got a regular black ink pad, but also I've got some coloured ink pads, and along with that I'm using, now these are all the tiny little mini stamps. This is out of the same sets that I'm already using, and I've got those, I'm just keeping those in a little bowl right now because they're my go-to to add to everything and anything. I've also got now a Stabilo pencil is a very dark pencil, which is great for adding shading, and also a white pen. Now it doesn't have to be a Stabilo, it could be any really dark pencil, and I'm using a Posca. This is a 1M, so it's a paint pen. It's quite a fine tip, but again any sort of paint pen would do. And I don't think I added this to the list, but suddenly today I thought I'm going to add some of the gold metallic. So I've got my fresco gold there as well. Obviously things like you're going to need scissors and glue and bits like that. Right, I'm going to turn the camera around now, get a little bit more light on. So bear with 1 minute while I just get the camera in the right position. I'm just going to add a little bit more light. Okay, now that's looking pretty good to me there. Right, just moving some of my supplies around so I can actually get it. Okay, now if I just show you here, this is the difference between something that is paper pieced and something which has been coloured with watercolour. So you can see there is quite a difference there. Now when you do this, I'm going to stamp this again, but on some of my pattern backgrounds. Now obviously I don't want his face to be a pattern. I don't want it all coloured. So I'm going to stamp his body, and I'm going to do it in two parts. I'm going to do one piece in a reddish colour from a print that does from the body up to the hat. I'm going to stamp it again and do the bottom, but include the arms. So the arms and the bottom half will be one piece. And then I've got his little face here. Now in this case, it's much easier to cut his face out and add it on top of the print. I'm going to look through some of my prints now. So these are ones that I shared last week in the live. And I'm just looking for nice pattern, bright colours. So I'm going to stamp his bottom half onto some green. And I want the arms as well. And then I'm going to go for this nice strong colour here. Now the nice thing about this as well, you don't need to be that accurate about the cutting out. So all these little extra bits here, these little stringy bits that come off, they're going to show anyway from the underneath piece. So this is why it's a really nice technique to do. You don't have to be that accurate. Now you can probably see already with this, I've got quite a lot of texture there in his little stripy pants. And I hope some of you are playing along and joining in. I literally feel on my own here. I can't see any comments or anything. I haven't got a clue what's happening. So I'm just going to keep going regardless. I can see people are still here in the group watching. I can see those bits, so I'm assuming you're still here. One of those little glitchy Facebook things. You know what this reminds me of? Do you remember, for those of you who were around in the 70s, and you used to get those little paper dolls, and then you could cut out the clothes and stick them on the top. And they always fell off. They never used to stay on very well. But that's what it reminds me of. Now I don't need his arm. And I don't need those little bits coming off the hat because they're showing through from the underpiece. And I don't need the arm there. So you can see how now his arms have come down the side in the green, but you also might see what I mean about the face. So we don't want the patterned face, so I've just coloured it here in watercolours, and I've actually used a bit of infusions as well there. It doesn't really matter, the end result will look the same. Anything water soluble that you colour work with will just look the same. Now, normally I would say if you cut something out of patterned print like this, I would say ink the edges, but you don't need to because of the other top layers that I'm going to add with watercolour and shading. So now you can see how his face looks pretty clear, hasn't got all the pattern on. Just going to clear away some of my mess here. Now I prefer a craft glue like this one, something that gives you a little bit of manoeuvrability when you add these. Just gives you a chance to move things around. So you're just making sure that everything's lined up with what was underneath. Now you can probably see how that, it looks okay. There's the colour and there is the pattern. There's texture in that print, but it just looks a little bit flat. So you can see that's a little bit flat. If I just show you how it compares, say, to this one. So there's still a little bit more to do. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is add some extra shading. Now I'm using watercolour here and also my infusions. And where I want this body piece to be pink, I really want it to be more red. So I'm actually just going to go in and paint a little bit of watercolour around here. Now, if you're working on a gel plate print, for instance, where you've used some acrylic paint, it might initially just resist that paint a little bit. That's because acrylic paint is a plastic. So just give it time and it will soak in. And really, I didn't glue that bit down very well. Just adding that around the edges, and I think we'll have a bit on the hat too. Now I'm leaving that to soak in a little bit. And then just cleaning and drying off my brush. Now when you go to shade these, you see I've got quite a solid edge here. I don't want that solid edge, but I'm going to work from the inside out. If I go from the outside in, I'm just going to carry that colour into the middle. So I'm just shading a little bit around the edge. Now I'm going to do the same but with some green. And I'm just going to give it a little bit of time to allow that paint to be absorbed by underneath. It's got some acrylic paint in there, so it is just going to resist it for a little while. I'll bring a little bit in as well around his face. I've cleaned my brush and now all I'm doing is just blending those very edges. So you can see already that's got a little bit more depth to it. There's a little bit of space here across his belly. So I've picked out a matching red. On small things like this, I don't even mount the stamps. So this is subtle. It's just bringing in an extra little bit of pattern. You can keep building up these layers until you've got as much shading as you want to. There's no right or wrong here, it's just what looks right to you. Okay, now this is actually water soluble, so you do need to be quite careful. If it's still very wet, this is going to straight away turn to ink, so probably I would leave it a little bit longer. I'm going to just build up the shade now, just really around edges. I'm being super careful here because this could really turn into very black ink. When you do things like this, it always looks like the blackness can look quite a little bit scary sometimes. When you get it on a background and mount it up, it never looks quite as bad as you think it's going to. So now with my white pen, I'm really looking for darker areas where I can add little highlights. Picking up the pattern there that I stamped in earlier. And there you can see now how much more I've added to that. And it's just giving him a little bit more depth, a little bit more definition. And compared to this one, which is just with watercolour, you can see there's quite the difference. Of course, he's going to need a little bit of glitter. Oop, that one doesn't want to play. You know what happens with glitter, it won't do anything, and then when you squeeze it, it all comes flying out. You can just pick out little bits of pattern. Now the gold. I did say I'd forgotten about this before. I forgot to put this on the list. I'm just going to tip a little bit out onto my palette. And for something like this, I would use just the wrong end of a paintbrush, just a small brush, and I'm literally just dipping it in the gold. Now, it's a good idea to try this on a scrap before you add it, so that you don't go on with too much. You can just add tiny little dots, and these just catch the light and they just give that extra sort of layer, a little bit of bling. And there we are. Going to now let me just find, let me just find where I put it. There's the Christmas tree there. Now we'll move on to the Christmas tree. The nice thing about doing this one is this is very easy to cut out because these are just straight little rectangles. You don't need to be too neat cutting out. It will work, trust me, it will all be fine. I said before, this is a great way of using up your scraps, any tiny bits. And it doesn't matter if it's a gel plate print, if you've just braided off extra onto a scrap card. And if you do it on a few different colours, and then you'll get some really nice, let's do a bit of on the blue. You get a lot of nice contrasting stripes. And I just start by laying those, and just think random. Don't be too trying to sort of match things up. Just random bits of colour on there. It all looks fine when you get it stuck down. Now when I draw these designs, they're quite often drawn with double lines. I tend to draw everything with a double line. So you do get the little loopy bits in the corner. And I usually go for the inside one. Does that make sense? So here, you can see I've cut to the inside line, and the outside line is just on the white. To be honest, again, I don't think it really matters. Now I'll bring in some of the blue. See how fast this starts to build. And by doing it this way, you get this texture and the pattern coming through from the print that you just cannot get by colouring in. I think that's why I like it so much. There's always so much extra texture in there. And I'm just going to pick out these remaining ones in this green. You see how I'm actually being quite careless how I'm cutting out. I don't find it needs to be that neat. Okay, so there we have the stripy tree. my glue's decided to seal over. And again, you know what happens, don't you, if I squeeze it? Right, there we go. Now, I hope some of you are joining in and playing along here. It's funny when you start to design the Christmas stamps, it seems so early to be doing Christmas, but now here in the UK it's definitely starting to feel autumn out there. And the minute we become September, immediately the adverts start for Christmas. So it's already started. And it's getting dark already now. It's pretty dark here up in the, I'm up in the north. So we do go darker a bit sooner, but yep, it's already feeling very like autumn. So I know it seems a little bit faffy, but actually colouring that in with watercolour, for instance, would still take me a long time. I'm going to do these edges and then just let it sit for a little while and let that soak in. Just get these layers on, and then I'm going to do same as before, the Stabilo pencil, get that shading in. So cleaned my brush. You'll notice I'm doing a sort of a circular action for shading. Even if it looks a little bit untidy at this stage, it doesn't matter because we're going to build on top of it. I'm going in again with my stamps. So these are the tiny mini stamps that come as part of the set. And because they are so small, they just fit in those gaps. This is the little number row. Now this one is found on the new gnome set. I don't think it really matters what you stamp, it's just building up that pattern and texture. And a little bit of black, it adds just a bit of depth. Now when I do this tree, I add shading in every corner of every stripe all the way up. I'm going to just let this one dry a little bit. That watercolour is still quite wet. I'm going to come back to that in a minute. Just want to talk about this one. Now, when I did this one, let me just find the original here. So the only bit I paper pieced was this round body shape here. So this is a little bit fussy, it's got a bit of detail in there. So actually, I just watercolour that and then cut out the bit that I want. And here, I used one that had a heart. So this was a print that had the heart stencil, and then I just added a little bit of colour around there. So you don't have to paper piece the whole thing. So let's have a look. So on here, for instance, I could aim to get one of these circle patterns in the middle of her body. Let's just try it and see what we can get. So if I aim for sort of this one here, now the only bit I need to cut out is the round body shape. But it does mean she gets some really nice pattern on there. And I find doing this, it really just smoothly fits in with the watercolour. So she's part watercolour and part pattern print. And I would finish it off the same. I would just shade those edges and bring all those little top layers in as well. Now let's just go back to the tree. It's dried a little bit. And I think the tree looks particularly good with the gold fresco on the end of, let's just check it, make sure I'm not doing too much, I suppose it looks a little bit like baubles on a tree. Now I haven't done the star today, but obviously that would need doing as well. Again, I would let this dry normally. It's a little bit too much doing it all. But I'm not going to put that glitter on quite now. It's just a little bit too wet. Now if I just look back at my little fella here, once you've put the hard work in and you've done your paper piecing and you've got your glitter and your shading, as soon as you add it to your background, trim it down, cut it out, add it to your project, ta-da, it's done. It's done. So we just have a look. That was my original one there. Slightly different, but pretty similar there. I'm going to leave it there for today. I've got no idea what's happening out there. I can see people still in the group. I haven't been able to see any comments or any kind of reaction at all. So who knows? It's been pretty lonely here. Right, I hope to see you all soon. Thank you for watching.